Okay. Is that happening for you guys? Okay. Okay, hi everyone in virtual land. Thanks for joining us. My name's Ellen. And just to give you a brief rundown, I'm going to do some introductions. Then we're going to have a conversation with the panelists, and then we'll open it up to questions or other discussion points. There is a live transcript at the bottom of the page, a button that you can press for the live transcript. And the panel today is being recorded for the ArQuives archive. So that's why there's the red button there. So today's event is being co-presented by the ArQuives, Trinity Square Video, and the Center for Sexual Diversity Studies at the University of Toronto. The ArQuives is one of the largest independent LGBTQ2+ archives in the world, and the only archive in Canada with a mandate to collect at a national level. Founded out of the Body Politic newspaper collection in 1973, its mandate is to safeguard histories across Canada of LGBTQ2+ histories. Founded in 1971, Trinity Square Video is one of Canada's first artist-run centers and its oldest media arts center, where it continues to operate as a space to reimagine media arts from its gallery, digital, and off-site programming in Toronto. The Center for Sexual Diversity Studies at the University of Toronto has a mission to explore, analyze, and challenge the ways in which sexuality shapes people's lives by advancing new forms of interdisciplinary knowledge that connect academic learning to both local and global, present and historical problems and contexts. And just a FYI, Abdi, the main artist for this project, is currently a research fellow with the Queer and Trans Research Lab, housed at the Bonham Centre. For those of you who don't know Abdi is a Somali-Canadian multidisciplinary artist whose work focuses on questions of Black masculinity as it intersects with Muslim and queer identities. Abdi holds an MFA in documentary media from Ryerson University and a BA in African Studies from the University of Toronto. And Abdi and I have been collaborating for more than a decade now. Today, Abdi is going to be in conversation with friends, researchers, and community members of whom his research is inspired by and engaged with. Panelists include John Richard Allan, aka JORIAL, Christopher Smith, Dr. Christopher Smith, and special guest Rooney Green, who will all be exploring histories of queer cruising from local perspectives. JORIAL is an artist and filmmaker whose work largely focuses on visual cultures of HIV/AIDS and queer publishing and community formations in the city. Dr. Christopher Smith is a research associate in race, ethics, and power at the Center for Ethics at the University of Toronto and teaches in women and gender studies in the Department of Historical and Cultural Studies at U of T Scarborough. Rooney Green is a community member whose local knowledge has inspired much of Abdi's work, and we are so grateful that he could join us today in addition to our other panelists. So this panel is in conversation with Abdi's public installation that is currently located at the ArQuives. It's a video projection from the upper windows of the ArQuives building located at 34 Isabella Street in Toronto. And this project builds on Abdi's ongoing research surrounding gaps between experiences and representations of queer cruising, space, and placemaking in the city. I am the curator of that project and it's on until November. So I encourage you to go anytime in the evenings. It's COVID safe, it's outside, and it's really stunning after dark to see these moving images of cruising sites. This projection, this outdoor projection is augmented by an online work that features local oral histories about queer cruising from the perspectives and experiences of Black, queer, and trans community members as recorded by the artist. And some panelists may or may not be in that audio recording. So I'm almost done, just a few more sentences. Through the metaphor of shadowboxing as a relational, defensive, and precarious state, this public art project, as a public projection installation, invites viewers to consider some of the shifting conditions in which queer connections take place. In this way, shadows offer and represent radical spaces involving environmental and bodily negotiations that are always site-specific. So with that, I'd like to just pose some general questions to you all and invite you panelists to pick them up as you see fit and build on each other's ideas or responses. And then, as I said before, at the end, we'll open it up if any attendees would like to join this discussion. So I'm just going to list some questions, and feel free to take them or leave them or answer in order or not in order. So a good beginning question is, what is your relationship to cruising in the past and in the present? How have you seen cruising change over the years in Toronto, specifically from your experience, your research, or your point of view? And do you see any changes happening to cruising during COVID? So I'll start there, but I have lots of other questions for later if you guys have time. So Abdi, maybe you want to start to just tell us how you came to this research around cruising. You have many projects that kind of take up this topic. And it's really great to have you here in conversation with many of the folks whose work and whose life inspires this work that we continue to do. So, Abdi.
Thank you for the introductions. I came to this project just out of curiosity. Let me just put it that way, because first of all, I've had a lot of stories about cruising, and sometimes I would actually be driving along Queen's Park, and I would actually see late at night, and so I was very curious as to how those spaces acted as a safer space, a so-called safer space for individuals in the LGBT community, but at the same time, a space where it's highly policed, right? And for the fact that the space was going through gentrification, or as Ronaldo Walker likes to call it, refinancing of the city. I was trying to look at that space in particular because at one point when we were doing the project, Ellen, remember, they had already enclosed the whole space, so there was no way of getting in there. And I always wondered what happened to the queer kind of spaces that it was known for, and what is going to happen to it in the future. Because they had installed different kind of lighting, they had trimmed down the trees, and the trees were the most important part of cruising, adding, because they acted as a shield from public viewing, but at the same time, it was also like the only viewers that were able to see anything that was going in there, most of the time were the people who were in the space itself. And so I would like to ask John Allan or Christopher or Rooney. Rooney might be able to tell us histories of Queen's Park and other parks like Hyde Park in terms of not in the 2000s, but more like in the 70s, maybe from his generation, because he doesn't cruise anymore. So anybody who wants to go first, maybe can just jump in and tell us a little bit about your experiences.
Rooney, why don't you start, but you're on mute.
In my days, I cruised Queen's Park. That was a cruising spot. Queen's Park, Hyde Park, and St. Clair and Young. That's in my days. Sometimes the police run us, we have to run in my days, you know, but I don't cruise anymore. I'm married, I'm happy. So, but Hyde Park and Queen's Park and St. Clair and Young, that was the cruising spot in my days. You know, you cruise, you see some person, You go and say hi to them. They may not, I may not their type. They brush you off and you move on. You know me, it's like white and black, black and white, you know. And some of my friends, we go cruising and they won't pick up a white boy, they'll pick up a black boy. For me, I'm open. You know, I'm open, you know me. So that's my days cruising, but I don't cruise anymore.
And was there surveillance and a lot of police at that time?
Yes, a lot. Because St. Clair and Young have like what call it, like a hill light. And we down there cruising, the police come, we got to run. And those days you have to run for your life, or you get whole go jail. The ravine at St. Clair and Young, that's a cruising spot. And we there cruising and the police come, we got to run.
A lot of police entrapment as well
going
on in the not just in Toronto, but across Southern Ontario.
Yeah.
I remember in the 70s, people getting arrested in Guelph and things like that.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry.
Sorry. What would the charges be, or what was that encounter like?
Oh, they would be charged for like things like public indecency. They would often, I think there was a big sting at the Fairview Mall. I believe that was a famous one. Actually, Fifth Column, a local punk band, wrote a song about it. And in these cases of police entrapment, they would actually publish the names of people in the newspaper, and it would lead to like suicides and all sorts of things. Yeah, it was very, very nefarious.
You know, it's a good. I'm sorry. You know, it's a good cruising spot right now before the epidemic, before COVID-19 hit. That'll be in the 90s or the 80s, the 90s. It gotta be 90s. You know, Nova Scotia Plaza.
Oh yes, I concur. Yeah.
I used to work in the Nova Scotia Plaza in a hotel there.
Oh yeah. I know that building.
That was a cruise. That's a cruise.
Well, all throughout the whole path system, really. Like there's just a network of, there must be like hundreds of washrooms and things.
Yeah, businessmen.
Yeah, but now there's all this. I've noticed there's been a lot of, how can I put it? Anti-cruising technology that has gone into effect. Like, we discussed in the parks where they cut back bushes and lights.
Yes.
Yeah. But now, if you've noticed, in a lot of places like the Eaton Centre, all the washrooms are open concept.
Yeah.
So that's really changed, I think, the dynamic.
I know was a good cruising spot to Islington subway station in the bathroom.
Which subway station? Oh, Islington. Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And Bloor and Yonge and Eglinton.
Yeah. Yeah, because like one day I was going to work, so I had to go to the bathroom at Yonge Bloor, and this cute boy cruised me. So I was a bit scared. I said, "You want to go back to my house?" I said no. And a couple of weeks later, he was at a function where I work. He never said I was professional. I serve him, never say hello to him, nothing. He stare at me, stare at him.
Oh yes, you often have to pretend you're meeting to someone for the first time.
Yes,
hello.
Yes.
What time is it? Well, also Union Station was another one. When I used to live in a small town like Fergus, and when I was 16, I would, borrow my parents' car and sneak down to Toronto and park it somewhere and then come into the city. And Union Station was a place that I would go. And then of course, just walking up and down Yonge Street. Because I ended up moving to Toronto in 1985, but I think here for like 2 years before I even knew there was a gay village. You have to remember, this is way before the internet, and but, no representation on television or any of that.
When I came to Canada when I was 20 years old. So I grew up here. The ArQuives Club, you know what the ArQuives Club? Young Wesley above Parkside.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Parkside, there's a cruising spa. St. Chad was a cruising spa.
Cornelius.
Yeah. But for me personally, I like to cruise in the grocery store or on the streets.
Oh yeah, the department stores as well. Eaton Center.
Yeah.
The Bay.
Yes.
Basically anywhere where there's a men's bathroom.
Yes.
Like especially, and this is I think true of every city and town. If there's a public men's bathroom there, that's the spot.
But I cruise on the streets. You know. But I live on Merton Street and it's very cruisy.
What about the weather? So for folks not in Toronto, it's really cold here in the winter. So would you go inside?
Oh, that wouldn't stop us.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
February, blizzard, monsoon. Yeah.
No, quite literally, like what I'm loving about what John and Rooney have been sharing is that cruising can happen anywhere.
Oh yes, definitely.
Like beyond like what we have like on a, let's call it a map or whatever. Like we know these particular places that reside in history. Like I'm trying to remember the name because I think they might have changed it, but it's that mall like in between Sherbourne and Yonge on Bloor.
Sherbourne and Yonge. Oh, like where the Bay is. That place?
No, before the Bay.
Where the Swiss Chalet is.
Yeah.
Oh yes, that place. That place was notorious.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But it's just like, I mean, and anywhere you go, like because we leave traces. Some way, shape, or form. And so I remember my first kind of introduction to cruising was being in the bathroom in my neighborhood mall and seeing people writing down their phone numbers like for a good time or whatever, or and then there were other illustrations, etc. And I remember being there with some friends of mine from high school, and I was just like, wow, this guy's looking for someone to suck his dick. It's just like he wrote this down, and like I was just fascinated by the fact that because like it was public but it wasn't public, like it was anonymous but it wasn't. I don't know if his name actually was Kevin, but either way, for a good time, call Kevin.
Yeah.
And like, my friend was just like, yeah, I've seen the graffiti, I just wasn't really excited about it. And I was just like, oh, okay, so I need not to be intrigued, but at the same time, I'm just going to make mental notes. So stall number 2, Kevin has a phone number. I'm going to come back with a pen. Like, and so, I mean, like, John, you brought up something that I've been thinking about myself as well, because in terms of kind of like an anti-cruising kind of, I don't know if you want to call it a mechanism or a machine but there's this interesting kind of shift that happened from the 80s into the 90s. And then once we got the internet, it's almost as if we gave up too much information.
Yes.
Like, because in the 80s, when I had my first taste of cruising, like it was more or less like you were on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You had to trust your own instincts.
Oh yeah.
Knowing what the codes were, and there was like an intergenerational kind of knowledge exchange, let's call it.
Exactly.
Where like someone will say, okay, well, when you're in the stall, tap your foot and do this, and I'm just like, but this is how you get busted because the police learned the codes.
Yes.
And so then you have to start inventing new codes and different ways of seeing each other. But now we're in an interest, because Ellen, what I think part of the question that you had asked us was like, how have things changed? And like, I don't even want to go, I don't even know how to address like cruising during COVID. That would be interesting. I'm curious what people have to say about that. But how things have changed. I mean, we have our way of counter surveilling the surveillance.
Yes.
So one day I pick a taxi coming home, and we get talking, and here I was, went underground with the taxi driver in my building. I was like shocked. You know what I mean?
Speaking of that weather question, when I was on my way to a booty call in a cab, the driver was flirting with me, and it was during a blizzard. So rain or shine, sleet or snow, cruising is the way to go.
Yes,
Exactly.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Do you think, or can you reflect on if there are changes, with the invention or the widespread use of the internet? Did that shift things? Are there comparisons that could be drawn between the rise of AIDS and now COVID?
Well, I stopped cruising when AIDS come up. I stopped it completely. Because a lot of my friends passed away. I cut that out completely. You know me, I may do some person that I know personal, you know me. I had 2 friends that come over, we party, not together, you know. We party, what happened, what if something happened, something don't happen, right? But right now, I stick to one person right now. I still cruise with him. I look at them. But,
you're married, not dead, right? Yeah.
Exactly. exactly. But I won't bring nobody home. I respect that there. I don't bring nobody home. And he respect me. He won't bring, he's bisexual. He won't bring a woman in my house.
One thing I would say is, I guess, maybe a similarity. When I first, started becoming intimate with and cruising, AIDS was already in full swing, so I can't really speak to what anything was going on before that. But what I do know from what, various research and what people have told me, long-term survivors, there was a huge resistance to condoms, like almost a militant resistance to them when the whole actually it was Richard Berkowitz, who's a long-term survivor. He sort of he wrote a book actually. Basically, he invented the concept of safer sex, and if you watch the recent British television show "It's a Sin," they sort of touched on that, how people were just militant, and it's sort of the same thing with masks now, right? With COVID, like people are just crazy when obviously it's, it makes so much sense. Wear a mask and you protect yourself. But I guess that's a similarity between COVID and AIDS.
Yeah, I was on a flight from Toronto to Cuba with some friends. I was on the aisle. I cruise as flight attendant. When you get to me, get so nervous. So I cruise until I get to Cuba. But I try to get his phone number. He tell me he have some person, bullshit, you know what I mean? So, okay, cool. But when you get to me, he get nervous. I was at the aisle. I cruise, talk to him till we get to Havana.
Oh, wow.
I get no phone number. But he was cute. He was cute, He was cute. He was gay, but he pretended that he got a girlfriend, all this bullshit, what? Tell somebody else that there.
John, you raised something interesting in terms of, again, like during the 80s, 90s, because I came into my sexuality when HIV was already present. Like I was watching an early Frost with like my mother on like a weekday evening. And that's when we had a different kind of the talk. Even though I hadn't come out to her yet, but she not kind of knew. She did know. Well, mothers always know, but
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, my sexuality somehow got conflated with me making sure that I'm very, very precautious around HIV. And I'm just like, but that's already instinctual because that's what we were like, that's what we came up in. It was already commonsensical. Even more so when you had to start making decisions around how much you're going to fear something. And so the whole notion of safer sex. And then also, well, what does that mean in the larger scheme of things? Because is it just simply safer in terms of viral transmission, or is it safer in terms of, because all sex is risk. And so, I mean, when we're talking about safer sex, like, is cruising any more dangerous than, well, quite frankly, I'm gonna be blunt. Folks who met Bruce MacArthur, they weren't meeting him in Queen's Park. like I don't want to make light of it, but it's just like there's an inherent risk in terms of sex, period. And so, yeah, no, it's something very interesting because I think the new technologies that we have coming available have become kind of tools for people to imagine that they can mitigate the risk. But the risk is still there.
Of course it is, yeah.
But do you also think that the fact that everything has moved online now and people can just hook up online using these apps, that has kind of increased the risk as compared to when people were actually meeting in alleyways or behind a tree somewhere, right?
I was an alley cat. I like alleys.
But moving outside from inside, you mean?
I really don't bring nobody into my house. I don't bring nobody to my house. I meet you outside alley. We have to do, and goodbye.
Yeah, but a lot of people have different opinions about that. They have that, that's one rule. Others would only meet at their house because they're in control of the situation. They know where the hammer is hidden, if they need it. Need be. They've then there's horror stories about that thing. Like someone goes in to use a shower or something, then they leave, and then you go in, all your cologne is stolen, or your wallet's missing, or things like that.
Exactly, yeah. A friend told me, he was my first boss in Canada. He used to live on Sudan, and one of his friends bring home a trick to the house, and he heard the person screaming. He thought the person was having a good time, but the person was getting killed.
Oh my Lord.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I did some stupid shit when I was young. Like I was with my parents. We were in we were in California, and we were staying in whatever town is attached to where Disneyland is. And I wandered away from the motel, and I got in a van, a windowless van.
Wow.
In Los Angeles, right? And it's like, oh, crazy. But when you're young and,
I meet this man on the telephone. That time I had no cell phone. I meet him on the telephone. And I said, I'm looking for work. He told me, come to Miami. Never see this man in my life. And my brother said, you going to Miami? I said, yes. I risked my life. I went to Miami. But he turned out to be a very nice man.
Oh, that's good.
He had a family. He put me in a hotel, all that there. But I was scared. I was really, really scared. Because I don't know this man. They're talking on the phone.
You don't know the city, yeah.
No, I don't know the city. But I risked my life a lot in Toronto. I risked my life a lot. I meet this man through this girl, and I was desperate for money. And she told me, call this man. I call him. I don't know what this man looked like. Nothing. I get the bus and went there. But everything turned out to be great. We still friends.
Mm.
And that's the benefit, and that's, I guess, the benefit of also taking risks is that
Yes.
you never know. I mean,
Yes.
I think this is, I mean, I know for myself in the 80s, one of the things that the 80s and, well, not so much in the 90s, more so in the 80s, because, I mean, the big thing for me was trying to find the place to actually have the sex, and my introduction into my sexuality was through Now magazine. Beyond like
reading the classified ads sort of thing.
Yeah,
I would do that when
I was old
kid.
school.
Yeah,
and so for me, and it ended up being not by desire but by happenstance that most of the men identified as bi. Whatever. But I mean, for me, the risk was because I would invite them to my home. For me, the risk was, okay, we need to do this quick before my mother comes home from choir practice.
Wow.
And
I wasn't that bold. I'd rather get in a van.
But again, it's that young and stupid kind of, like, just kind of throwing yourself into a certain kind of feeling and really embracing like the energy of the desire, where it was just like, yeah, I don't care if I get caught. Well, I mean, obviously, I care to a certain extent, but I'm willing to risk that because I know deep down I'm not doing something wrong. It just so happens that I'm doing it in my mother's house. Like that would be like the only violation.
See, for me, that'd be the risk of like they would show up or something when just knock on the door or something. That would be my fear. Like at another time, you know what I mean? Because they know where you live.
I like bisexual men. Pardon?
Oh no, no one said anything.
I said I like bisexual men.
I don't discriminate.
What about how does race or ability play out in these encounters?
Well, for me, I met Black boys in the park, Black men, and they just brushed me off. They go to a white man. First, no love lost, you know what I mean? I continue moving, you know what I mean? Sometimes I met white men, they don't like Black boys. So I continue moving, cruising. So I find someone who like me, who interested in me. And we, if I don't find that night, I come home. You know what I mean? So like, that's my experience. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of, I don't know how to put this. A lot of cruising, whether it's in a park or a bathhouse or whatnot.
Yes.
Which is sort of like shooting fish in the barrel, but it's, a lot of men, I don't know, they don't have, they can't take a hint, you know what I mean? If someone's like chasing you around or whatnot, or you're with somebody and they would come over and try to get in on, get in on what's going. I've always found that a little disconcerting about cruising.
Okay, basically based on the exhibition, quite a number of people in the when I was doing the interviews with them had mentioned something to do with how race played when it came to cruising. Could maybe one of you or all of you maybe talk a little bit about it?
Well, I had my experience in recent cruising. So I see a Black man that I like. I go and talk to him. If he's not interested, he will go to a white man. I may see a white man, he's not interested. So like, no love lost there. You know what I mean? I keep moving.
What about the police?
But you gotta be hiding. Because sometimes the police coming on, with plain clothes police come in, break up the party, and you got to run. You know what I mean? Sometimes I run right on Don't Be Late show running.
Mm.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
but yeah, in particular, I wanted you to maybe talk a little bit about if you happen to come across that kind of experience, or you know of anybody, maybe stories that you had before.
I never come across that experience. I come across that experience running, but I never get hold by the police.
Not about the police so much, about people who might be interested in you while you're cruising, but in real life, when they see you on the street, maybe they're not the same people who will be interested in you in other ways.
No, yes. So I meet men, black men, white men, in I call it the bush, in Hyde Park or the St. Clair, and then next day I see them, they don't speak. I don't speak either, you know what I mean? So life go on with me, you know what I mean? I don't push myself on nobody.
I think it's an unwritten rule that if you see somebody and if they're with somebody else, you don't say anything.
No, you don't say nothing.
Like, there's a lot of
No cock blocking.
Yeah, you wouldn't walk up. Hey, I met you in the bushes last Saturday. Remember me?
No.
And they're there with their wife and child. No, you don't. That's not cool.
No, I have my pride. I have my pride. No. I got my pride. No, if you don't speak to me, I'm not going to speak to you. Like the guy I met at Young Bloor. Yeah, he's a student, right? He gave me a blow in the bathroom, but I was scared about the police. And then a couple of weeks, they had a seminar at the club that I worked for, and he was there. I didn't say no, I professional. I serve him. Hello, I serve him. Nothing didn't come up. You know what I mean? I think he was a bit embarrassed because he saw me there. I didn't say nothing to him. He said nothing to me. I served him his food, and that was it.
That's like the code.
Yeah. Yes.
Abdi, in answer to the question around race, in relation to kind of this installation and especially the oral histories, I think what the oral histories that are offered tell us is that there's already kind of, we map out a different kind of geography where the anticipation of, I guess, having better odds of getting lucky play out. And so, you know, I know for myself, I mean, that place that I mentioned, you know, that mall, was it Greenwind Square or something like that? I'm trying.
Oh, yes, that was it.
Like for me, I was just like, it was close to St. Jamestown. And so for me, I was just like, yeah, the odds are better.
And they had that weird washroom that was like up the stairs and around the corner, and it was like, it was very secure.
Yeah, and so it's like, but for me, like in my early days, like I'm kind of, and whether consciously or unconsciously, I was just like, I know my options are better here because there are more people of color. And on days when it was mostly white men, the white men would be playing with themselves. And so I'd wait till they finish and then wait for someone of color to come in. But like the option, like the possibility of someone else coming in. And so, yeah, no, it's an interesting kind of process in terms of thinking about like, okay, so where are the more interesting places to go? And I think we know this if we're not just talking about public parks, but also like porn theaters, etc. Like people start to map out like these are the places where you're more likely going to see more people of color.
You know, in the days, I'm sorry. You know, they had a movie theater right at Dundas and Young, a gay theater right at Dundas and Young. You may not know the next.
Near the Zanzibar. It was.
Yes.
There were a couple of them I remember. There was one that was a proper theater that had a back entrance or something. Yeah. And then you would go downstairs, and then there was another one that was sort of in the back of a head shop or something.
This theater was right on Young Street near downtown Young. You go in there. That was a big cruising spot right there. And this guy was, I get a joke, this guy was sitting next to this gentleman, and he touched the guy, and the guy said, I could touch myself, so fuck off.
Oh, Lord.
You know what I mean? Like, you hear stories. You hear story when you're cruising. You hear a lot of story when you're cruising out there on the streets.
I remember years ago, I met someone in there, and then on Facebook, I stumbled across their Facebook thing, and it's like they're a pastor. It's like, oh, okay, well, alrighty, yes.
Well, my cruising time was fun, but I stopped cruising now. I'm married for 6 years now, you know what I mean? So I'm happy, you know. So I said, look at the little boys, you know what I mean? Because he told me, when they begin to beat me here and tell them to beat me, then when I get fish enough legs, he enjoying it. Because he tell me stop cruising these men. But I could look, I'm not touching.
Sure.
You got to excuse me from my speech, because I had a stroke. So my speech sometimes is babbled. But I like cruising, you know. I walk the street, he looking at women, I looking at boys. So I mean, it's fun, you know what I mean? It's fun.
Well, I think it's a natural instinct in gays of a certain age anyway. When you're first, you know, I don't know how it is now, because gay community is literally everywhere. So I don't know how much cruising is. People would have to do it out of necessity. Back in the days when it was illegal, how would you meet someone? You know, walk down the street, you look at them, see if they look back at you, and that's how you meet
exactly.
someone.
I was telling Abby this earlier evening.
You would develop gaydar, basically, and what's known as gaydar. And I don't know how that's how young people work that out today, because it seems to me that, you know, they can meet anywhere. They can meet online. I mean, the internet's been really good for the gay community, and it's, you know, it sort of destroyed the physical gay community. Like, bars have shut. There's so many. There's hardly any bars in Toronto now. When, you know, 30 years ago, when we had half the population, we probably had like 40 gay bars at once. You know, and now there's just a couple. And but at the same time, the internet has allowed people who live in remote areas, they can actually have their whole gay life is through the internet, which is a good thing.
Well, I told Abby this afternoon, like, if you're walking on the street and you see this guy and the guy look at you, you look at the guy. If you look back and he look back, yes, that's how you pick up men.
Mm-hmm.
If I cruise you and you look back and I look back, and I will walk back.
And then you would stop.
Yes.
One of you would stop looking in the window and loiter, sort of thing. And then
exactly,
the next person would lead you around a corner or two. Some place of ill repute. And
one night, one morning, like 9 o'clock, I was on the subway, and this black guy, young kid, he cruised me. I cruised, and he get off at St. George. I get off at St. George too. So I brought him back home. And then I went to the club. I went to Kobe's the weekend. I saw him.
Okay.
And he didn't speak to me. I didn't speak to him, because you have nothing that I want.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We had fun for a couple of minutes. So you cruised me, I cruised you. So that was the end of that.
Does cruising ever lead to like love or a relationship beyond like bodily encounter?
That barely leaves the real name.
I cruise. I was in Kobe's one night, saw this black man come in. It's cute. I mean, cute. He had dark glasses. So I told my friend, he's hot. I got to get him. I went to him. I said, this is my number. I having a party. Rah, 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 rah. He came to the party. Never see him again. And then for Christmas, he called me and said, do you want to go and meet my family, my brothers and sister? I said, oh. I was going to Kobe with my buddy. I said, you go, I go on. And from then, we had a relationship for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
15 years. We just finished about the last 10 years we broke up because like I was working 2 jobs and he go work when he feel like going. He had a good job. I won't call his name, I'll tell where he's work. He had a good job, but he go to work when he feel like going to work. So when the bills come in, the credit card bills come in, I pay because I was doing a part-time job for lunch and then go for the evening till 3 to 11 and making tips. Like Friday night, I bring home like $300-400 in tips, right? So he was young. I met him. I'm sorry. I met him when he was 19. I was 45. So we went for 15 years.
Wow.
So when I lost my job, I see the next half of him. So we got evicted, and so we still friends. We still talk, but he want me to come and live with him. He live in outside Toronto now, but I can't go back there. I can't go because he went to my parents. Because my mom was there to help me move. My dad was there. He told my dad, "Oh, my mom, he never wants to see my face again." That hurt my mom.
Oh.
That hurt my mom so bad, right? So, but she get over that. She didn't get over that completely, but we still friends. He and I are still friends. We talk. We don't talk every day anymore. We talk once in a while. But I love this man. He was so cute, you know. They call me a chicken hawk, you know. That I like young men, you know, not too young, but young men, you know. The one that I with right now, I cruise him in Barbados. I get introduced to him, and he was turning 29. You know, he's 36 years now. We used to get 6 years now. I'm 70. I'm 73.
Looking good.
You know, so that, I say that young gentleman. I say that young gentleman. You know, if you're cute, I like them. I like cruise. I love cruising. Cruising is number one in my life. You know, I don't like cruise. I don't go on Church Street. I don't go on Church Street. I cruise around my neighborhood. You know what I mean? I got some young little black boys around my neighborhood cruise. I got one. He tried to play me, you know, but he ain't play me. I play him. You know what I mean? Because he want money. You know. No, I say no. He not giving up nothing, but he want about $500-800 from me. I said, how you gonna pay me back?
Yeah.
You in college. How you gonna pay me back? So he out of my life. So but cruise, I like cruising, you know, I like cruising. So Renata always tell me, stop it. But that's my nature. I love cruising.
To everyone.
Anything. I like to think anything can happen out of cruising.
Yes.
True. I mean, especially what you least expect. I mean, I had a relationship with someone who I'd met who was in town for a conference from Ottawa, and we had a lovely evening. And you know, as we were about to part ways in the morning, he was a gentleman. He bought me breakfast, golden griddle. I'm not demanding, and Golden Griddle has the best breakfast. I'm sorry, it does. But like quite literally, like the two of us kind of remarked at how well we got along with each other beyond just sexual chemistry. But obviously, like the fact that he lived in Ottawa was kind of a bit of a roadblock. But then I realized, well, wait a minute. My sister's having like a CD release party in like a week and a half. You want to meet in Kingston? And so all of a sudden we're like in this kind of like long distance kind of relationship that lasted roughly about like 6-7 months or so. Like we spent the weekend in Toronto for Pride and some, but it was initially supposed to be a one night kind of thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, but we actually enjoy each other's company. And so for myself, I've never ruled anything out. I mean, I think I mean, some people perhaps may go with a particular kind of agenda of like no attachment, but even when you do that, sometimes the attachment might find you anyway.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys saw the chat, but someone joining us today is from the States and has some cruising stories to share. Maybe if you want to add in, Johnny.
Oh, yes.
Tell us where you are.
Oh, yeah, I'm in Fort Wayne, Indiana, in the Midwest, which is, I don't know, about halfway between Chicago and Detroit. So just a quick couple things, and I've really enjoyed what everyone has said. I'm active cruiser, and it's been a big part of my adult gay life. And just in the U.S., I've found that, you know, I've done it in small towns here in Indiana, or my city's about, I don't know, 250,000, but then also like big cities like Seattle, San Diego, the Bay Area, just some amazing, beautiful public parks in all of those West Coast cities that I mentioned that had some great some great cruising experiences there. So it's just kind of amazing to me that it really doesn't matter like the size. You would think that it would be like big cities just where this stuff happens, but I've been in smaller, real small towns in Indiana, or cities of like 50,000 or so, and there's a park, you know, I wonder if there's anything going on there. I just happen to be going through this town traveling, and you go to the park, or local park in the city, and lo and behold, you know, you might run across one or two other people there. And then the other thing I wanted to say, we were talking about that, about the apps and whether the apps have, you know, killed it or not, Grindr and whatnot. And I, of course, have that, but I personally like cruising better, because I think when you're on the apps, you have, like, people have their set parameters of like, oh, I don't want anybody over 20 or 25, or I only want, you know, this race or that. And they're pretty set on that, or, you know, send a pic. I want to see a body pic. I want to see that. Whereas if you're like,
I know the conversation is very good.
Sorry, keep going.
If you're in a cruising, if you're in a cruising setting, you know, you see the person. You're not like seeing their stats before you see them. So you just might have a connection with them by just seeing them, and they might be outside of your preferred race group or age group or whatever, but you're just like, wow, I have a connection with that person. So in my experience, sometimes, you know, you have more of a chance to get lucky or whatever in cruising than you would if you were just to stick to the apps. So those are just a couple of things I was thinking.
But I don't go on the app. I cruise on the streets. I want to see you in person. I want to see how you look, you know, how your body look. I like that there. I don't go online cruising.
I got married just as Grindr was becoming a thing. So I've never actually done the Grindr thing. I of course know all about it from my friends. And the other cruising method, I've never done the phone lines either.
Never? You never did manline?
I never did manline. Never did manline.
Oh my God, that was like my next step from like Now Magazine, and then I upgraded manline.
I never did manline. Every other, you know, avenue of cruising I've pretty much done, but not I never did the phone lines.
No, I mean, again, like
What was the appeal? What was the appeal of phone lines?
About manline?
Yeah.
I'd like to hear someone's voice. I mean, again, it comes down to this whole question around trust.
Yes. Okay.
And so for me, it's just like, I'd like to pride myself with my Murder, She Wrote skills or whatever. I can tell if you're shifty before I come to your house, kind of thing.
Okay.
Before we meet up, but also, but it's more so like if you can hold a conversation for more than 30 seconds, that's not about what you want to do with or to me.
Yeah.
Then I have a sense that you're coming into the situation with as much vulnerability as I was. And so, and again, in uncanny ways where one person who I had hooked up through landline you know, we were talking and initially he was like, I'm not sure if I'm interested. And then all of a sudden he comes like out of random and asks me, wait a minute, do you work at Shoppers Drug Mart? And I'm just like, yeah. And then he's like, wait a minute, I changed my mind.
Oh my, I recognize your
It's
voice.
like, okay, like you don't have my visual stats, whatever, whatsoever, but all of a sudden, like whatever information I gave you,
Your voice.
led you down this path of like, wait a minute, you're the hot guy at Shoppers. It's like, I'm a hot guy at Shoppers? Okay, sure, let's run with that. Okay, come pick me up in 15 minutes. Like,
I forgot you worked there. That was like a long time ago.
oh yeah, a long time.
Yeah.
Yes, I've been doing it a while. I'm not retired, I'm on hiatus, but but yeah, no, I mean, it can bring you anywhere. And so it's like, I mean, in terms of like technology, I mean, for me, I mean, one of the things that I was thinking through, especially in the early 2000s, the ways in which like apps like Squirt would have like listings of like places to cruise. And I'm just like, what's to stop the police from like,
yeah,
utilizing it as a tool?
Yeah.
And then you start to see the ways in which people, especially once they had the cell phone application and not just like the desktop version, where people would be giving live updates, like don't go to Riverdale Park because the popo's here.
Yeah.
And so there's always like an interesting way in which people utilize these tools to still like cruise outdoors, but at the same while at the same time making sure that we're doing something to ensure that we're protecting each other. I've never understood Grindr though. And I think when I got to my wit's end with Grindr was when I was at the barn for a Grindr party.
Oh Lord.
And so everyone at the barn was on Grindr. And I'm just like, what exactly is the point? Like, the barn used to have a dark room. That was cruising. Like, you don't go to a club.
Oh God, I got in trouble.
To then like be on Grindr. It's like, he's like 2 meters away. I'm like, bitch, he's right beside you. he right beside you. It's like, and so I've never understood that fascination in terms of what kind of boundaries people think that the app allows them to have. But you know, to each their own. I mean,
but the app is free, but man lines you pay for, right?
Not necessarily. So
Okay.
I think there's a certain amount of free features, and if you want the deluxe, you know, features, it's extra. But I think a lot of basic things were. I think I would have. I was pretty prolific on, you know, Atom for Atom and stuff back in the day, and Recon and BBRT and all these other sites. You know, for myself as HIV positive, I'd always want to zero sort, which is only hooking up with someone else who's HIV positive. So there was ways on Atom for Atom that you could use a search engine to figure out who's HIV positive, and so that's one thing I liked about Atom for Atom.
Mm.
Same thing with Squirt.
Yeah, and I think Dudes Nudes also had that, you know, but it's very different, like very different experience when you say you're HIV positive online, as a, like, you get completely different people hitting you up, and then of course you get hate messages and all sorts of things. But
I wanted to open it up if anyone here listening has any questions for Abdi or the panelists, or any comments or experiences they want to share. We listed the event as 6 to 8, but it's almost dinner time, so we don't need to go that long. But would anyone like to share anything?
I done share all my comments already.
we know we're type now.
I mean, while we're waiting for the audience to jump in, like I'm assuming, well, I shouldn't assume that we've all had a chance to see the actual projection.
Oh, yes.
I wanted to share like a cute story because it was just like, I went to see it on Saturday with my friend Ricky, Ricky Forgave.
Oh, yeah, I know.
And so, but it was priceless because there's all of these different dimensions that the installation, just in the way that it's constructed, is fascinating in terms of how we understand the logics of cruising, because we were standing watching the projection and people are walking down Isabella and they're wondering why are these two people of color standing in front of the ArQuives, like just sitting, just standing there looking. And I'm just like, okay, don't worry, we're not casing the joint. But at one point, like someone actually turned around and walked back to ask us what we're looking at. I'm just like, we're looking at this exhibition. It's about public cruising, so on and so forth. So I did my part in terms of promotion. But it was fascinating in terms of just us standing in space for a moment. Because again, these are the things that you navigate through cruising. And so it's kind of like, yeah, like this is such an ironic kind of, or uncanny kind of moment where, it's just like, well, why would that person be standing there? And it's just like, you don't know, maybe it might also be cruising.
It could be a hookup in progress.
Exactly, like it could have been all of those things, but no, we were watching the exhibit and then we were going to go out for dinner. But like,
but to a complete stranger, they might have, you might have been thinking, well, which underground parking lot do we get?
Well, precisely, and so I mean that was one of the things that I loved about the exhibition. Beyond the fact that I was also trying to place the geographies before they were named.
Oh,
where I was just like, I think I've been there before. Oh, wait, no, never been to David Balfour, but like, why does that look familiar?
Oh, I learned a new. I never knew about. Was it Fairmont Park or something? Someone mentioned. It's like I never knew about that place. It's just down the street.
Where's the Fairmont Park?
It's down. It's off Gerard, I think, at Coxwell or something. Somebody mentioned it. It's like, oh, I never even heard of that one. So,
Rooney, someone attending asking, where is Orcus Club? Where was Orcus Club?
The Orcus Club was at Young and Wesley, above Parkside. That was the club in my days. That was #1 club.
I believe that's a Japanese place now.
No,
like
yeah, they had the Supreme, Michelle and two others from Jamaica, traders from Jamaica. That was the club there. And then you have the club there on Carlton, the Carriage House.
Oh,
you know about the Carriage? Yeah, the Carriage House. Yeah, Carriage House was a good cruising spot. The Carriage House and Boots. And you ever went to the Blackbeard on Young and Eggington?
Oh, I didn't know about that place.
Yeah, that was the Blackbeard. And then you had the Crest at Young Bloor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The Quest. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
The first gay bar I went to, and actually had a lot of success. There was actually a lesbian bar called Chez Moi. Remember Chez Moi on Hayden Street? Yes.
Yes, and you know about the Miss Knights?
Don't know that one.
You know about Colby's?
I knew about Colby's and
Katrina. It was Katrina's.
Yes.
Yeah. And the Manatee. And the Manatee.
The Manatee. Yes.
Yes.
That was an all ages place, wasn't it?
The Manatee was like 16, 15 kids, no alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
And that start like 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, right through the morning.
Mm-hmm.
But no alcohol.
And of course, the St. Charles.
And St. Charles, yes.
Yeah. And there's Showbiz. I remember Showbiz down there.
I had a club right on Isabella.
Oh yes, Chaps, Comrades.
Yeah.
There was one in the alleyway there.
Yeah.
And then of course there were the booze cans.
I think I think we'll start wrapping up now.
Yes.
Be yapping all night if you.
Yeah, it's very interesting to hear from all of you and your contributions to the panel.
Well, thanks for inviting us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm putting my email in the chat for Tyler. I can connect you to these amazing folks doing this research already, and this public projection that Abdi has at the ArQuives is an extension of another project we did at the Gardner Museum a few years ago, and Christopher Smith wrote a really amazing essay for that project. So there's other things we can point you to as well. And yeah, so thank you everyone for listening.
Yeah. And please go see the exhibition if you haven't seen it already. Yeah, it's every day from 6 to midnight.
Oh, midnight. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was nice meeting everybody.
Yes, nice to meet you.
I had to go home and walk my dog. I got a big dog, a rescue dog. I gotta go and walk him and cook dinner for my husband. And it was lovely talking to you.
Thank you so much.
I hope I meet you in person one day.
Yes.
Yeah. At Ronaldo place.
Yeah.
Post-COVID.
So everything's finished now.
Yeah. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'll talk to you and Abdi and Christopher online on Facebook.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we stay on Zoom for an after party?
Okay, Abby.
Okay.
Thank
Have
you.
a nice night.
Why do you think I was kidding?
Bye. Abby? Can you hear me?
Abby? Huh? Okay,
Yes.
thanks everyone.
Can I wrap up now?
Yep.
Okay.